everyone, welcome back to another episode of A Girl's Guide to STEAM. I'm here in the Spark studio with Emily Owen, the weekend meteorologist of Fox 54. Today we're going to talk about her amazing career as a meteorologist and also dive into the impact STEAM has had on her career and get into some advice questions as well.
I'm here
for it. Let's dive in full steam ahead.
Let's go ahead.
So how are you, Emily?
I am doing well. I just came back from vacation, so I'm refreshed, recharged. I feel like I'm brand new at my job again and not in a slump anymore. So it's just what I needed. Perfect.
I love that for you.
Perfect vacation time.
A great time to recharge and reset in the middle of the craziness of this Alabama weather, which I'm sure you have to report on a lot.
Yeah, it's great. It's so great.
So before we dive into any of the other questions, Emily, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself?
Okay. So, like she said, my name is Emily Owen. I graduated from Oneonta High School, so I'm a local here, 2015, and went to Mississippi State University. I was there until 2019. While I worked at Mississippi State, went to school at Mississippi State, I worked at WVUA 23 in Tuscaloosa. So that was like a rare thing for you to do if you went to Starkville, because we did have a practicum lab, but only a handful of people had a job while they were in college. So I was one of the lucky ones, thankfully. I had 2 internships. I interned at WVTM 13 in Birmingham and ABC 3340 in Birmingham. So yes, with James Spann. Yeah. So he's taught me a lot of, everything. I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of what I try to correlate with my job, how to make it more personable, and what makes people want to listen to me more. So those were definitely 2 good learning experiences I had. And then of course with the job, I got the real TV experience while I was still in college. So I graduated college and I came right to Fox 54 here in Huntsville. So I've been there since 2019, May of 2019.
Wow, so right before COVID and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Wow. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with meteorology from maybe a young age? Were you like always interested in that, or what inspired you to go down that path?
So a lot of people that you ask that question, they're going to say the Twister movie. That was not my case.
Oh, really?
Yes. I was petrified of thunderstorms. Anytime we had a tornado warning, I was quite literally in the corner, bawling my eyes out, praying to God that this tornado wasn't going to happen and I was going to be fine. Asking for forgiveness of my sins at the age of 7.
I relate to that too much.
And then I had a cousin. He's like a brother to me. He's 7 years older than me, and he was really fascinated with weather, but he never wanted to take that route because of all the math that was involved with it.
Understandable.
So that kind of rubbed off on me as well. And then in 2005, it might have been 2004.
Okay.
We had Hurricane Ivan that hit the Gulf Shores.
Yeah.
I had gone to the beach the following summer, and I just remember walking into Souvenir City. It's what we call the Shark's Mouth.
Yes.
And they have like all of the markings of how tall the water rose in the building and pictures of what everything looked like, and that just kind of fascinated me even more. So I always had that in the back of my mind, but then I thought, well, maybe I need to do something more realistic, like should I be a nurse, or should I follow in my mom's footsteps and be a loan officer, or something that I'm for sure going to have a job in, because that's what people think. It's going to be hard to get where you want to be in this field. And like I said, I am blessed. I am very lucky to be able to do what I do, because my main goal was to come home, and that's what I did. And then, of course, we had April 27th, 2011, the tornado outbreak. And that, I think, kind of sealed the deal for me.
Yeah.
I just thought that it was just, I'm getting chill bumps talking about it, because it was just so fascinating to see how James Spann and Jason Simpson and Jerry Tracy, they were doing all of this long hours of coverage, and they were so well put together, where I probably would have been peeing in my pants in the corner crying, like, what do I say to these people? That kind of fascinated me as well. And then just seeing how they were able to save so many lives that day just from literally saying, hey, there's a tornado, you need to take shelter immediately. And I always thought that that would just be a way to give back to people in a way, not necessarily save their life, but provide life-saving information potentially to people.
Right.
And then, of course, I wanted to know how a dang tornado forms, you know? I was thinking to myself, well, maybe if I knew the science behind it, I wouldn't be as scared of it.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped it a little bit, but I've always had anxiety my entire life, so pretty much I'm scared of everything, essentially.
Understandable.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but being able to, like you said,
Mhm.
knowing the process behind it
Yeah.
can be very helpful. So, speaking of which, why don't we dive into your education a little bit?
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell me a little bit about your college journey?
Whew, it was a long one.
Oh,
I was
goodness.
only there until 2019, so I was there for the 4 years that you typically go to.
Right.
They say everyone has their own journey. Take as long as you need, take as short as you need, you know, whatever. But I had to take a lot of math. I had to take a lot of physics classes. I mean, I'm an atmospheric scientist, so science is my background.
Right.
And it was just a lot of studying, a lot of hard work. I did get the college experience, but when people talk about college, they think we're gonna go partying on the weekends. We're gonna do this and this and this.
Yeah.
And I had that luxury some weekends, but majority of the weekends I was in my apartment doing my thermodynamics homework. Or
Exactly.
meeting up with my classmates and doing homework with them as well on campus. But it was a journey I needed to go through. Like I was telling you earlier, me moving away from home was what I needed in a sense to, I guess I could say grow in this field. It taught me a lot about myself. I got to learn a lot about myself and what I could do to advance myself within this career and what I needed to put out to get people to like me in a sense, make me want to be, or make them want to trust me
Right.
when they turn the TV on. So all of my friends from high school, they all went their separate ways, but they went in duos. I had 2 friends who went to Troy University, 2 of them went to Auburn, 2 of them went to Bama. And here I was by myself going to Mississippi State University. But like I said, it was exactly what I needed. I met all of the people I needed to meet. I did everything I needed to do, and it kind of helped me become more independent. And like I said, I got to just learn a lot about myself and grow. And majority of my friends that I met in college are some of my very, very best friends still to this day. That's who I just got back from a beach trip with. 3 of them are still on television as well. So one of my friends, Trevor Burchett, he works in Memphis. I have Jake Dalton, who's also in Memphis, and then Chelsea Aaron, who is actually across the street from me at WAFF 48.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably the best thing that college gave me was my friends. I needed them, and I feel like we all needed each other.
Yeah, and like you were saying, that sort of independence is really important to be able to form those relationships with people, because I'm sure that, you know, you have the science background of meteorology, but then also it's a very people-centered position as well as scientific, and I'm sure you have to go out in the field and interact with people as well. So that's very good that you had that sort of interaction from a early portion of your career.
Yeah, it definitely, I feel like I had somewhat of an advantage, I guess, because I do know James Spann and everybody worships him. It's him and Saban. Those are the 2 people that are only cared about here in the state of Alabama. So to know that I have a contact and some sort of a relationship with him, that kind of made me feel a little bit better about going into this field, because I know he's well respected, and I knew that this business is kind of not necessarily all about who you know, but that does help a lot.
Yes.
And so to know that I had someone like him and Jerry Tracy, I got to work with Jerry Tracy before he retired from WVTM. Just to know that I had those people kind of made me feel like I was in a safer space. To know that I had those connections. And that's why I always tell people to make connections. Even if you don't think that you're going to need them, just make the connection anyway, because you never know, one day you might need them.
That's very
Yes.
smart advice. Connections are always
Yes.
super important. So let's see. You mentioned something about having internships or something.
Yeah.
Was that correct? Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
So the way college works for a meteorologist is you typically only do one internship. But I had to be the overachiever. I've always worked like that. I'm a perfectionist, and that's kind of killed me in some ways. But
Understandable.
that's just, that's how my brain is wired. But I got to have an internship, 2017 was at ABC 3340. That was with James Spann, Megan Thomas, who is now in Nashville. Charles Daniel, he has gotten out of the business to raise his children.
Yeah.
And then I had WVTM 13, which is NBC affiliate. That was the following summer. So I had Jerry Tracy, who has been there for, probably 30, 40 something years. I mean, he is well respected. And then Stephanie Walker, she's the morning meteorologist. And then, of course, Harmony Mendoza was still there, and Adrian Castellano was still there as well. And it's very interesting to me, all of these different meteorologists, and see what type of educational backgrounds that they've had, because I know a lot of them come from Florida State University.
Really?
Georgia, the University of Georgia, they have an atmospheric science department. I know USA has an atmospheric science, and of course we have it up here, but there are two different routes you can take, and you can do broadcast or you can do professional/operational meteorology.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I took the professional route because I didn't know this, where James Spann came into what he needed to for me to know this. I was able to register for what's called the Academic Common Market.
Okay.
And so because I wanted to do broadcast, but I also didn't want to pay out-of-state tuition,
Understandable.
nowhere in the state of Alabama do they offer professional meteorology. It's all broadcast, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah. I know it's different up here. I think up here it's just generalized atmospheric science, maybe. I can't remember. And then USA they're just strictly broadcast.
Wow.
So Mississippi State, they are the #1 school for broadcast meteorology. So I was like, I have to go there. And I wanted to stay within the SEC too. Like, I was born and raised Alabama. Like, I needed somewhere to go other than Auburn, because my family probably would have shamed me for it.
Like you said, Nick Saban and James Spann.
Yes, those are the two people that matter the most. And so I got to apply for the Academic Common Market, didn't know that was a thing, and I paid in-state tuition while I was at Mississippi State University because of that.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's word connections.
I love that.
I know, too.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about, because you mentioned there's the difference between broadcast meteorology and the general atmospheric science, and the difference between those. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that, just in case of our listeners are interested in that?
So I can speak on behalf of Mississippi State, just because that's where I did go to school.
Yeah.
There are 3 different programs, and then they also have what's called a meteorology certificate.
Okay.
So I'll give an example. Brittany Decker, she's the evening anchor at WVTM 13 in Birmingham.
Okay.
So she has a broadcast journalism background, but she has a meteorology certificate from Mississippi State University, so she can help out if needed. Because I know sometimes there are an all hands on deck situation, and you always kind of have that advantage to have that extra person.
Yeah.
Or, God forbid, everyone got sick with food poisoning or something,
Oh, goodness.
then they would need somebody, and she's able to do that. So there are 4 routes you can go. You can do the certificate, you can do broadcast meteorology, you can do professional meteorology, and you can do operational meteorology.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what the operational, I think the operational side is more of, I'm trying to think of the word for it. It's like how people defend their theses.
Okay, got you.
They're like not studying, but along that route.
Yeah.
I literally cannot think of it.
No, you're good.
But they do more of like research, was where I was going with that.
Got you.
Research. So they're more of like research based, but obviously they can get jobs within the Met field. And then, of course, we have broadcast, which is, I want to be on TV, let me talk about the weather. And then we have professional, where you can work for the National Weather Service, which is on campus here at UAH. Huntsville's is. You can work for airlines. I could work for Delta. I could be a meteorologist for Delta. Yeah. I could work for private sectors like oil companies. I can do pretty much any type of degree that any type of degree you would need for any med job comes within the professional realm.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, so there's a difference. But literally, I always knew I wanted to be on TV just because that's how I was. I was like, oh, I'm going to be famous.
Theater kid energy.
No, seriously, I'm like only child. Let me do my thing. I literally was like always in the musicals when I was in high school, and I was head majorette, and I was always wanting to be the star of the show. So
I
was
love
like,
that.
Let me do it. No. But I went that route because of the academic common market. But it actually turned out in my favor because we have these things called Certified Broadcast Meteorologist seals. That comes from the American Meteorological Society. A lot of words.
No, you're good.
Like if you're on TV and you see somebody's name and they have at the bottom like a little AMS sticker looking thing. That's kind of what that is.
Fancy schmancy.
Well, back when I was still in school, you had to have these certain courses that you had to take to be able to apply to even take the test for the seal.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and, knock it out. And that way I don't have to go back to school while I'm working and still don't have to pay out of state tuition.
Right.
And now I know they've changed the curriculum a little bit to where at Mississippi State, where pretty much any meteorology route you go, it kind of is going to cover the bases of it. But really the only difference was I got more math and science out of it. So I know when I was in school, broadcast, they only had to take Calculus 1 and Calculus 2.
Okay.
Where when I was professional, I took Calculus 1, Calculus 2, Calculus 3, Calculus 4, differential equations. We both had to take physics, but my physics was calculus based.
Oh my god!
So I was doing a lot of derivatives.
I'm shaking in my boots hearing that.
It's a lot of work. Which is why I understand why Derek didn't want to be a meteorologist.
Yeah.
And they take more TV production courses. I took one just to get me, the basics of if I ever did need to throw a package together or something for the newscast, I could do it.
Right.
Would prefer not to.
Right.
But yeah, they took more TV production side of it, where mine was more science and math, and I took thermodynamics too. That was one of the courses. That's the difference, is you only have to take thermodynamics 1 when you're, I think operational has to take both, but when you're just broadcast, you only have to take thermodynamics 1, and so I took both of them.
Wow.
But it kind of gives me that up in a sense, because it's more, I got to learn more about certain subjects than I would have if I would have just taken the broadcast route. So I feel like that helps a lot in ways that I can relay information to people too.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. No, you're good. Well, that actually goes right in line with my next question. So the specific route that you took obviously was much more intense in a way.
Yeah.
So what kind of motivated you to continue in that path, or to prevent burnout per se? Because I can imagine, that's a lot.
I think just me having, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a goal. I felt like I was going to succeed whatever I took. If I did want to be a nurse, or if I wanted to do accounting or anything like that, I knew I was going to be fine, whatever route I decided to take. But I think me being an adult, I had to satisfy the little girl in me. And that was her dream, was to be a meteorologist. And of course, I don't want to ever feel like a failure, and that comes a lot with the way my brain is wired.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt there were so many times when I was in school where I was like, I just want to drop out. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't know if I can take another calculus class. I'll just be quite honest. I was failing some of my calculus exams, and I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through. Like, I want to get up.
Right.
But I didn't because that's just like, that is who I am, and I didn't want to feel like a failure to my family, and because I've just always kind of hyped myself up about how I'm going to be on TV one day, I'm going to be a meteorologist, and then, I just felt like, oh, but that would be such a downer if I came home and didn't end up being a meteorologist,
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helped me to keep going, and then of course I built these connections, these relationships with the people around me. Literally all my friends from college are meteorologists.
Yeah.
So all my roommates were meteorologists.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was good to be able to cry with other people that were
Yeah.
crying about the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, there were a lot of times where I really did want to give up just because it is so extensive. But just knowing that I didn't, and if I could tell myself that back in 2018, 2019, that everything is going to be okay,
Yeah.
I don't think I would have believed myself.
Right.
But yes, that's probably would have helped me, you know, keep going even more if I did know for certain, like, hey, everything's going to turn out okay, but that's just life, you know.
Yeah, and I love that you're just so open about it.
Yeah,
I think that people try to glaze over, you know,
Oh, yeah.
it's a perfect time and stuff, but no, being realistic about it in a field as complex and as difficult as that, it's understandable to have those moments of frustration or whatnot.
Yeah.
So
I'm never going to sugarcoat anything about my job. If anybody asks me, I'm going to tell them because it was things that I also wanted to know, and I never got to really understand the full aspects of it until I was doing it for myself.
Yeah.
Just how chaotic, how, you know, trying it can be. Viewers love you, viewers hate you. I had one woman literally was so angry over email because, and like I said, I'm an open book. I wear hair extensions because I got COVID in 2020. My hair literally never came back. So
goodness.
It is thin as paper, so I wear hair extensions.
Yeah.
And she just sent this raging email to the news staff talking about how she wished that I would cut my hair because it didn't suit me, and I need to bring back my bob, my short-haired bob that I had in 2019. I would just look so much better. But then they love to compliment you after and say, oh, you're doing a good job, though, you know. So I had to have thick skin with that as well. But yeah, I am always open about everything. I think that, like I was telling you earlier, when I go to all these school visits and I talk to these younger boys and younger girls about this field, you know, they always come up to me and think that it's so cool that I do what I do.
Yeah.
And then they ask questions about it, and I'm not going to be so, you know, open to the little kids.
Right.
But of course, like high schoolers and stuff, I do a lot with Career Day, especially back at Aniana, just because I am from there. And, you know, I tell them everything like, hey, it was hard, but it is doable. I am living proof that it is doable, because I never in a million years would have ever thought that I would have made it all the way through.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I also love that you're just giving back to the community in that way with career days.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Career days are my favorite. And now that my little cousin Ridley, I have a very, I don't want to say it's odd, because I know some people are also like this, but my first cousins, I grew up in a very, very tight-knit family on my mom's side.
Yeah.
And me and my first cousins, their name were Daniel and Derek, we are basically like brother and sister, essentially. I know I could call either one of them right now and they would pick up the phone more times than none. I'm going to call Derek because I'm usually having car trouble and he knows the answers to all the questions. But Derek has two boys, and Ridley is the oldest, and he'll go into first grade this upcoming August. So I love getting to go to school and getting to be the cool person, because like Ridley knows me, and he's like, oh, here's Emily. Emily's coming to school today, and I love now that like I have people who I love so much associated with a school system that I love so much. So it's just like I always love getting to talk about my career to all different types of. I talk to high school, to middle school. I talk to it all, but I think the elementary is probably my favorite.
Oh my goodness. Do you have any like funny questions or anything that they've asked you?
I literally have had a first grader ask me what my salary was before.
Oh my! I mean, this girl or guy, they have their priorities.
Yes, yeah, they wanted to know what my salary was. Someone asked me if I had ever been blown away in a tornado before.
Oh no!
Yeah, and you know, kids are kids, and they're gonna say what they want to say, and I'll have an answer to something. If they ask me something off the wall, I'll try to come up with something. But yeah, I had to skip the salary question.
Oh my goodness, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
And the blown away by the tornado, that's also hilarious.
Yes.
I love that.
I'm just thinking to myself, if I would have been blown away by a tornado, do you think I would have been here?
Right.
Do you think I would have been blown away by a tornado?
You know, I admire them for their creativity.
Honestly, yes, because they probably have seen the Twister movie, and I know they all do blow away in Twister, but they're fine, and
Right.
you know that's not the reality.
Exactly.
So I'm just like, oh boy.
Oh my goodness. Well, why don't you talk to me a little bit about your career right out of college, the beginnings of your career?
It was a learning curve for me
Okay.
a little bit. It was a big transition because I was officially a big girl in a big
Yeah.
world. And that's weird to say. I'll get more to that in a second. But
Yeah.
I had to learn a lot. You know, thankfully I did have that experience while I was still in college, so I didn't come in completely blindsided. But it you know, it was just a transition, having to pay my own bills and having to be an adult in an adult setting where people were older than you and had more experience than you. It was a learning curve, that's for sure. But now that I'm a veteran, I can see all these newer people that will come join our team, and I think, oh man, I wish I was that young again, and you know, didn't know as much as I know now, and I feel like I can, you know, give them that type of information that they want to know, you know,
Right.
well, what's it like, you know, within the next 2 or 3 years, am I going to feel like I fit in, you know, because I always felt like I was the newbie. I felt like I was a newbie until I signed a second contract at
Really?
54, yeah, and then that's when I started speaking my mind a little bit about things. If I didn't agree or disagree with things, then I would advocate for myself, which is something I wish I probably would have done at the beginning of my career, because I was
Yeah.
new and I was very scared, and I took everything that everyone said to me to heart, and I would go home and cry, and
Oh no.
but you know, that's just how it is. you know?
Yeah, yeah, especially when you're starting out soon, learning to find that voice for yourself. I believe that's something that in Maya Torres episode, she talked a little bit about of how important it is, even as a student, to start to learn to find your voice
Yes.
and to be able to stand up for yourself.
In a respectful manner,
Yes,
obviously.
obviously.
But yes, I go back and talk to the practicum courses at Mississippi State. I'm really good friends now with she was my instructor. She's still the
Yeah.
instructor there, Lindsay Poe. She asked me once a semester to come talk to the students there, and I always get to talk about the disadvantages of the industry because yeah, I'm blunt with people,
Yeah.
but that's like the first thing that I tell people is you've got to stand up for yourself, especially in this business, because people will run right all over you.
Oh my goodness. Well, I wanted to ask you, in a way, do you think that meteorology is more a male-dominated field?
So it is. There in the United States, there are 29% are females.
Wow.
Yes. So yes, it is a male-dominated field, obviously, but we're starting to see more women become chief meteorologists.
Yeah.
1/3 of a TV meteorologist you're going to see has a Mississippi State degree, so it's a lot of us. Yeah, it's a lot of us. But yeah, only 29% out of all of the on-air TV meteorologists within the United States, only 29% of them are women.
Wow. So I guess, how did you be able to navigate that sort of dynamic?
Well, I kind of feel like I have the advantage here as well too, because it's just Jordan and I on my team, so it's a team of two. Usually when you go places, I don't know if you know this about Fox 54, but Fox 54 was a thing back in the day. Then they kind of stopped for a little bit, and then they became a thing again in 2016, 17. I can't remember exactly when. So we're like fairly new again in a sense.
Yeah.
So we're trying to build back up the amount of shows we have, the people we have working there. It's basically like we're having to start from the ground up again.
Yeah.
So it's just Jordan and I on our team.
Okay.
And he's male, I'm female, so I don't have an entire team of boys and then just me.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about that. But I do know that I had a couple of my friends that were girls. They worked on a male-dominated team, and it was very hard because you know, she would get pushed around a lot and overlooked in a sense, and people didn't take her seriously because she was a female. And there were times, I can say this now because Jordan and I we have a brother-sister relationship in a way. He also went to Mississippi State, so if he's in the wrong anytime, I'm always going to call him out on it. But there was, you know, I had just started, and it got to a point where I looked at him and I said, you know, I'm not your intern.
Mm-hmm.
I had to tell him, like, I am a female, but I'm not your intern. I am your colleague.
Yeah, we're equals.
Yes. So I think that's a lot of it is, you know, people perceive male more powerful than female, which is not the case.
Exactly.
I will roll my eyes at that. Not the case.
Likewise.
And I think women in STEAM is so important, and it's so important to advocate for that, because most of it, not just meteorology, is a male-dominated field. One of my good friends, her name is Megan Claiborne. She works at the power company in Birmingham.
Okay.
What is it called now? It's not Alabama Power. It's something Southern. I can't remember.
Okay.
Anyway, she's an electrical engineer, but she works with a lot of males.
Yeah.
So, you know, we kind of had that relation in the very beginning of us transitioning to our jobs, being like, well, why do they not think that what I'm saying is correct or can be correct? Or, you know, I feel like I'm always wrong, or I'm overshadowed or overlooked because I am a female in a male-dominated field. So it is challenging, but that goes back to the thing of advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier in my career, I had to tell Jordan, hey, I'm not an intern. Like, you know, I know what I'm talking about. I have the same degree as you.
Right.
Well, I'm going to brag on myself. My degree is actually a little more powerful than his. Because I did go the professional route.
Yeah.
The broadcast route. So, but literally, I mean, he's so smart. We are a great team.
Yeah.
Like I said, it is like a brother sister relationship, because I can call him out on his BS, and he can do the same to me.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get mad about it at each other. And if I'm doing something wrong, he's going to call me out for it, and vice versa. Even though he is the chief, he has started to treat me more as, like, we joke about it. He calls me the weekend chief.
I love it.
So we have grown a very close relationship, and I think that all stemmed from it stemmed from me standing up for myself, and eventually finding a voice for myself too.
Yeah.
So it can be tough, especially if you're like me and you're an introvert. You don't want to, you know, make anybody mad or have to stand up for yourself, so you just, you know, kind of let it roll off your shoulder, and then you go home and cry into your pillow.
Right. But that's not good for you, though. So stand up for yourself.
In a respectful way, but yes, always stand up for yourself. That's probably my number one piece of advice I'm always going to give people, is that they have to find their voice fast, and they need to use their voice.
Yeah, well, I think that's great advice, and especially in such a heavy male presence field. I never, I guess, would have guessed that percentage of, I think only 29% is what you said?
29%.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
It is crazy when you think about it, because it is such a male-dominated field, and you think, well, you know, do viewers just think I'm a pretty face since I'm a female? Or are they just trying to equal things out in a sense? Oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's a woman, you know?
Right.
So it was, I wouldn't say it was challenging for me, but I do know people that was challenging for. You know, they had to prove themselves, which shouldn't be the case, but they did have to. And I would love to see those numbers rise. I truly would.
Likewise. Yes. Well, I think that, like you said, standing up for yourself is a great start.
Yes.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about your career as it started to develop? You said that at the beginning you were kind of like, oh my goodness, I feel kind of new and newbie, that sort of stuff. So
I was very nervous.
Yeah.
I was extremely nervous, thinking about, like I said, I'm on television. Like, that's scary.
That is scary.
You know, we might not be the most watched news station, but somebody out there is watching me, and it is scary because I don't know them.
Right.
They think they know me.
It's like talking into the void.
Yes. And so I eventually got to a point where I didn't feel like I was going to pee my pants all the time. It was time for me to do a weather hit and shaking in my boots and everything. So I feel like my nerves were probably my biggest obstacle, was overcoming the nervousness of it. And once I finally did start to establish those relationships with viewers, I have a few loyal viewers who are always commenting on my Facebook. They always are coming out to our events to talk to Jordan and I, and they're so great. You have the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But obviously the good always outweighs the bad. And I think them commenting more to me and saying, well, I love that you did this, and last night, and you described this in such an easy way for me to understand. that's when I kind of lost all my nervousness, and I was like, wow, people actually do like me, and they actually are listening to me, and they actually do care what I have to say. So I think that is kind of what calmed my nerves a little bit too, as well as Prozac, but let's just be
I love. How do you expect the unexpected?
So you don't. That's the thing. And that was also another thing that took me a while, that it was something I had to get used to. Because I'm a planner. I wake up on a Monday morning and my entire week is planned out. And if somebody throws a wrench in my weekly plan, then my plan is shot to heck and back. You know?
Right.
I'm like, okay, well then so much for this great week I was going to have. And
Yeah.
I had to transition really big out of that, because I am also OCD, so I will say that as well. I'm very organized, and this has to do this. So having to change my hours a lot, and not, like you said, not expecting what actually happens. Like, yeah, we do know if severe weather is going to come, we do know that there's the chance for tornadoes, but we don't know how many is going to develop. We don't know how strong they're going to be. We don't know if the city of Athens is going to get a tornado and Huntsville doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
That's the unexpected part of it. And I know, like, with this last severe weather event, I wasn't supposed to come in. It was one of those overnight things. So I wasn't supposed to come in until 10 o'clock that night, and I was going to work until about 8 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
And Jordan, I mean, the S word hit the fan.
Oh, goodness.
Yes. Literally, like, things were happening earlier than they were supposed to. And Jordan was like, can you get here as fast as you can? So I live an hour away from Huntsville. So I was like, yeah, let me hop in my car. I'll be there. So I ended up coming in at like 8 o'clock that night. And the good thing about it is that it left earlier than it was expected to. So the hours kind of worked themselves out.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was unexpected for sure. So I've kind of taught myself to expect the unexpected. I know that's cliche, but yes. And especially with news, it keeps you on your toes. Even if I'm not necessarily interviewing people or turning packages or anchoring the news, I'm still part of that environment.
Yeah.
So it always is going to keep me on my toes. Just like Saturday with the assassination attempt, I got to work, and we thought everything was going to be normal. Well, of course, we took Fox National, and that lasted until 10 o'clock that evening. And so we were like, okay, well, we're just going to can our newscast.
Yeah.
Well, then 30 minutes later, our producer comes back and she's like, let's just do a digital only newscast. So we're all running around like chickens with our heads cut off, like trying to figure out how we're going to do this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so you just kind of have to learn to go with the flow. And like I said, expect the unexpected, because you never, unless it's going to be a sunny day, which is 9 times out of 10 what happens here in the summertime.
Right.
You never can tell. Every day is going to be so different than the last. And yeah, you just have to find your flow within that flow and go with the unexpected.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That sounds absolutely crazy, and it seems like dealing with such a high amount of stress and unpredictability. I guess you mentioned to be able to expect the unexpected, but how do you, in those moments, stay calm too?
So it's an adrenaline rush for me, actually. My mom and I were talking about something the other day, and I made the reference, a bunch of policemen had drove down the road and all their sirens and stuff were on. Well, she was like the first in the driveway. She was like, I gotta see what's going on.
That's how it is in the South.
And so she was just like so hyped up after that. And I told her, I said, exactly how you feel now, that's how I feel when I'm doing severe weather coverage.
Oh.
Yes. And it does sound bad, because like we do get destruction a lot, but like those are my favorite days. I hate to say that, but like that is what I am trained for.
Right.
And that's probably the hardest part of my job, is doing the severe weather coverage.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's like coming off of your favorite carnival ride or finding out you're going to Disney World. That's the adrenaline rush that I get when I'm, okay, well, they've issued the first tornado warning. I've got to get on TV now, and don't know how long I'm going to be on TV, but I'm going to be here until that last warning expires. So yeah, it sounds terrible to say, but that is probably my favorite part about my job, is tornado coverage.
No, you're good. It seems kind of in a way that you switch from regular Emily
Yeah.
to performance Emily
Yeah.
in like a split second, because I understand that feeling, because I did theater for a
Yeah.
while, and so I know that sort of like, okay, like boom, switch, got that adrenaline going.
Well, and it's funny too, speaking of the switching, I keep moving this cord like it's my hair. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
You're good.
But my little cousin Ridley, he's noticed where he like him and his brother Rawlings, they like to spend the night with us on weekends sometimes.
Yeah.
And of course my mother watches me, and they'll be with my mom, and he made the comment to her one of the last times they were watching me. He calls me EE. He said, "Why does EE's voice sound different on TV than it does in real life?" Because I mean, I'm a country bumpkin. I'm from Blount County. Like the South can come out of my voice, but then I snap into what I call Emily Owen mode.
Right.
So I used to not even say my name. If you asked me my name, I'd say it was Emily.
Yeah.
But it's Emily. That's the correct way to pronounce it. And so like that was another transition too, was having to kind of get rid of that accent, but keep it in a way, because I am from Alabama.
Right.
And I work in Alabama.
And the familiarity of that.
Yes.
Accent.
So when I say that it's going to be a toad strangler, or like I accidentally, oh my gosh, I felt so bad for doing this, but I knew people were going to get it because it was a colloquialism.
Okay.
My previous anchor on the weekends, her name was Sedona Meadows. She had said something in one of our anchor chats about how the weather was weird that day because it was sunny and it was raining at the same time. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
And so I made the comment. I was like, well, you know what they say, when it's sunny and raining, the devil's beating his wife. And I'm like, oh my God, I should not have said that. But then I'm like, but I'm in Alabama, so like I feel like people, some people probably did get offended by that, but at the same time, like, I'm relatable, you know?
Right.
If I do say it's going to be a toad strangler or a gully washer, like, they're going to know what I'm talking about.
Exactly, because we have our own little sayings
So
and whatnot of the South.
I like to let that South slip out a little. And
I love that.
It's like on TV, I don't call dinner, I call it supper.
Right.
Like if I'm given a dinner time forecast, I call it supper time, you know? Because that's just how it is in the South.
No, you're good. That's just how it is in the South, and
truly.
I love that.
Yeah, truly.
Speaking of which, we're kind of talking a little bit about how you communicate to audiences.
Yeah.
I guess, how did you start to figure that out? Because I know you have the training and stuff from your degree, but what was it like being able to communicate all of this knowledge that you learned
So it was
to modern audiences?
Yeah, I don't want to say it was hard, but it was hard trying to find a way to, I don't want to say dumb things down, because I don't want anybody to ever think I'm calling them dumb when I'm saying this, because I am a blonde. People perceive me as a dumb blonde, you know. So when I say that I'm blonding things down to people, I'm trying to find a way where I can talk about how, you know, the dew point and the wet bulb and all this scientific stuff is going to relate to how humidity is outside. You know?
Right.
I have to talk about these big words, and I'm thinking, how can I call it blonding, how can I blonde this down to the viewers? So it helps a lot that I have a lot of maps behind me.
Yeah.
I don't use a teleprompter, so everything that I say literally just comes out of my mouth. Storytelling is what I like to tell people. So it was hard to try to find a way to transition it, but not dumb it down so much, or blonde it down so much that people wouldn't think that, oh, well, she's just up there to be on TV, you know, that type of thing. So like I still have to throw out, you know, well, this is why this happens, and it's a teaching moment too for me as well, and you know, that kind of lets people know, well, wow, she actually might be the real deal, you know.
Yeah.
She's teaching me, well, how, you know, a cold front's going to come through, and with the cold air clashing with the warm air, that could cause severe weather, especially in the summertime because we have a lot of moisture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can teach that to people, and I think that's probably my favorite thing is I'm getting to teach people about my job a little bit, and then not have to go through differential equations and.
Oh dear Lord! No, that's so important to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
So important, being able to understand the different audiences and the channels and stuff, and like you're saying, not necessarily dumbing it down, but
we're blonding it down.
Exactly, blonding it down to your audience.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's very important. And I know, by the way, I did a little bit of research.
Uh-oh.
You have this thing called Emily Explains.
I do, yes.
Why don't you tell me about that?
So I have a weekly digital-only series on our app and on our web. It's literally called Emily Explain. And basically what I do is I pick topics that are kind of relative to what the weather is around that time of the year.
Yeah.
And I do other fun sciencey things too with it as well. But basically, I'm explaining to people how this happens and why this happens, and if we see X, Y, and Z happen, well, then we're going to see this happen with our weather. So I do a lot of different ones. I know the first day of hurricane season was June the 1st. So my very first episode of Emily Explains was about hurricanes, how hurricanes form.
Yeah.
And like I said, I do different, but still sciencey things. Like the 4th of July, I did one on how fireworks happen and how they get their colors, the chemistry behind that. This week's episode will be about thunderstorm formation and lightning safety. So I've got all kinds of all kinds of things. I've got it planned out through at least winter as of right now.
Okay.
What I'm going to be doing. So I've got a bunch of different topics, and I like that too because, like I said, I love the teaching aspect about my job, and I don't have to necessarily be a teacher.
Right.
So yeah, that's one of the perks about my job that I like is the teaching aspect of it and getting to use my bigger words and use my science and explain how this happens and maybe help people with storm anxiety like I had myself. Like I said, I was petrified of tornadoes, but once I learned how they work, then I wasn't as scared about it because realistically all it is a column of wind,
Right.
So yeah, but here I was in the corner shaking in my boot.
Oh no, I totally understand that. I was that exact same way for a while, but then all of a sudden learned at least a little bit about it. And my dad, he loves to go storm chasing because he's like local little radio station guy and trying to report on the weather too.
That was
so I was like, I love going storm chasing too.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that.
That's like a thing here is when there's a tornado warning, there's like a meme that goes around where people are like propped up against the wall outside and they're like trying to watch for
Oh my
it.
God.
And that was literally always my pawpaw. Anytime we had, the risk of bad weather, he was going to be first to see it outside.
That's how my dad is.
And he actually got struck by lightning that way. It's terrible to say, but it was fine. That's not how he passed away by any means.
Okay.
No. He was leaned up against their door facing, which was metal at the time.
Oh no.
They have a chain link fence. I say they. My papa passed away in 2011, so really my nana. I guess they at the time.
Yeah.
They had a chain link fence, and of course that's a conductor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think lightning had struck the fence, ran the length of the fence, somehow found its way to the door facing, and my pawpaw, even, to the day he died, he still had bruises from the lightning strike, and it was just on one side of his body. It didn't, stop his heart or anything. It definitely wouldn't have been, if you were out in an open field and a lightning strike will kill you, essentially. It is literally 50,000 degrees.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I always I used to joke about it with him, you're going to get struck by lightning again, if you keep hanging out here. And I think that was kind of what led me to it too, was because he was always fascinated with it as well.
Yeah.
I think it kind of carried on, my papa kind of rubbed it off on Derek a little bit, and then Derek, he was a nerd about it, had all sorts of United States maps and would track the storms, and
That's how my dad is.
yeah, I just became fascinated with that as well, and I was like, oh, interesting. But that's a thing in Alabama. It's people, I'll say tornado warning, and instead of going to the basement, they go outside because they want to see it.
Yeah, so do you have to say don't stand outside,
Yes.
go down there. You can watch the footage later.
Yes, I'm literally always you need to be in your safe place immediately.
Oh
if you're not in the polygon and you want to stand outside, sure, by all means, I can't make you do whatever, but if you're within that tornado warning polygon, you need to be in your safe place.
Oh my God.
So I always have to reiterate that, and and we always, of course, we love to see viewers' photos, especially if it's, we want to see, because we don't get to go to all these different locations where these storms happen. So, like, we want to see what you're seeing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't go outside while there's a tornado so you can show me the tornado.
Right. Oh my goodness.
So I have to relay that message a lot.
Oh my goodness.
That's not your front steps.
Oh no! So you were mentioning that in like the severe weather moments and stuff, that usually you're just at the station. I guess what sort of moments do you go out to the field per se?
So mostly it is for snow events.
Oh, I see.
We did this thing a little while ago. They still do it. The sports department, they do First Down Friday night. So they had a game of the week. We would go to that game and do the forecast from the game.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, we get to do little outdoor moments like that. But yeah, I'm mainly out for snow related things, like things that are still severe, but they're not as severe as like tornadoes and severe thunderstorms, stuff like that. I know Jordan got to go down, I think it was Hurricane Michael. He got to go down to Panama City and at the time help our sister station out. So things like that you get to experience, and then you have the fun things like the Alabama Jubilee that's in Decatur. I was in a hot air balloon, doing stuff, and we do some stuff with the trash pandas. Their home opening days. We'll do weather, or we actually used to have our entire newscast there from the show that on their opening day. So we'll get to do like fun things like that. I'm excited to see what we might do with South Star that's coming up.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that'll go because I'm working that weekend. So
oh goodness.
I know.
So you're the weekend meteorologist.
Yes.
So how is that process, I guess, a little bit different doing it for the weekend throughout like the weekdays? Do you prepare your sort of moments prior to it, or how does that work? Because it's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. Usually, so my schedule, my weekend is Monday and Tuesday. I'm off Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, obviously, we have Jordan on TV. So I work a regular 8 to 4 job that day.
Okay.
What I'll do is we still have to send in radio hits.
Yeah.
I'll have to update our website. I'll go ahead and start working on Emily Explains for that week, building my graphics for that. And that takes a good chunk of my time out.
Yeah.
I'll write new web articles like on heat and things. I think I'm allowed to announce this, but we're about to start weather impact alert days at Fox 54. So I've been doing a lot of stuff related to that behind the scenes. Building new graphics for that, writing all the web articles for that. We're about to change the entire dynamic of a weather impact alert day. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. And I'm trying to think what else I do. I love it. I love my weekday shifts more than my weekends because I am, like I said, I'm an open book. So I literally come into work. I have no makeup on. My hair is in a ponytail, and I am in shorts and a t-shirt. Because people know that like I'm gonna get my work done regardless of how I'm dressed or what time I come in or whatever. So I think the weekday shifts are like my favorite. It gives me more of that normalcy within the position.
Yeah.
But it was a good transition for that as well, having to miss family events on weekends and holidays. I had to work Christmas. I've worked. God, I feel like I've worked pretty much all the holidays at some point.
Wow.
So yeah, TV never stops. That's the thing. But we're fortunate now where the past 4 years we have not had a newscast on Christmas. So like I do get to spend my Christmas day with my family. Yeah, I'm hoping that's going to become like a new normalcy for news stations as like major holidays,
Right.
Who's going to watch the news on Christmas, really? We all know we're watching the 24-hour A Christmas Story,
Exactly, we're listening to the 24-hour Christmas tunes or something.
So yeah, working the holidays it's a downer. It can be a downer. But of course, you have if you love the people that you work with, you never feel like you're working a day in your life, especially with your job as well.
Exactly.
So I have good people that I work with, and we always try to make the holidays fun if we do. I know Memorial Day, we usually are spent out at the Jubilee. 4th of July, our production manager will we'll buy hamburgers and hot dogs and grill out for all of us, and
That's
everybody
so
brings
cute.
a side. Yes. We'll have a Thanksgiving dinner if you're working Thanksgiving. And New Year's, we'll sometimes get like pizza or something delivered to the station. So like
That's
they try
precious.
to give us some sort of normalcy within this crazy job that we're working. But yeah, the schedule it's different for everybody, and I've worked on the same schedule for, like I said, almost 6 years now. So I'm in a point where I'm used to it now. So I would love to move up. Obviously, I would love to eventually work do morning weather. But I'm happy where I'm at now with the schedule that I have now, because it probably is the most normal out of all of them.
Really?
Yeah. Because Jordan's schedule, if he's gone, I fill in for him, so I work his schedule. Like next week, I'll have to work his schedule because he's going out of town, and
wow.
I will work 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. if I'm filling in for the chief.
Okay.
A morning show is typically 2 a.m. to 10 a.m.
2 a.m.?
Yeah, depending on if you're like a network, like who your network is. So like we're the Fox affiliate, so we don't have Good Morning America or anything to cut into. So I know some people will do like 4 a.m. to noon because they'll have a noon show that follows Good Morning America or something like that.
Right.
And then of course you have the weekend people. Some TV stations, they do have weekend mornings, so they'll work the same as the morning shifts. And then you have people like me who I work 2 to 10 on Saturdays and Sundays. So
okay.
It was a transition, that's for sure, but I'm used to it now. So it's terrible to say, but I revolve my life around my work schedule.
I mean, you kind of have to in that sense.
Just so I can make sure I'm getting to do what I want to do. And Jordan, that's another thing Jordan's really good about, is I kind of get to dictate the schedule in a way. I'm always the first one to take off to do something, because he is all about his work. Like he will not take a day off to just sit on the couch like I will. I will 100%. If I got a PTO day to burn, I'm going to burn it and I'm going to sit on the couch, and that's all I'm going to do that day. He is very work minded, and so he doesn't take off unless he needs to or has to. And my friends who are not in the field are very good to kind of revolve things around my schedule. I don't ask them to do that, but like if we do birthday dinners for any of our friends, we do it on Friday nights because they know I don't work on Friday nights. So yeah, they revolve, any type of get together we have, they try to revolve it around my schedule because mine's the most complicated.
Right.
But yeah, I still feel like I have some sort of a normalcy, within it. I still get to do fun things, and if I, need to take off, Jordan's not one of those that are like, well, you can't take off, sorry. He's like, just go on. Literally, like back in October, I had gone and I had seen the Jonas Brothers in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh my gosh.
That had been planned. I bought those tickets. They went on sale like back in the summer, so like that had been a planned trip.
Oh my god.
And we saw them, and the show, I just loved the show so much. It was a 3-hour show. They kind of did the whole Taylor Swift Eras tour thing, but they made it their own.
God, I'm gonna cry. I was a Jonas
Yes.
Brothers girly when I was little.
Well, that's another cool thing about my job, is my job actually got me to meet them. Yes.
Oh my god, I'm fangirling for you.
I do get to do fun things like that. But they were going to be back in Atlanta like 4 days later, and I had the opportunity to get another set of tickets to go to it. And I told Jordan, I was like, if you don't need me, I'm going to go. And he's like, go.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Go. I'm not going to need you to go to the concert.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I get to do like off the wall kind of things like that aren't scheduled a lot. I know some people don't have the luxury to do that because some people do run such a tight ship, and I'm just fortunate that that's not my case.
Yeah.
Because Jordan and I are only about 4 years apart.
Oh, I see.
So that's why I always say we have that brother-sister relationship.
Right.
But yeah, adjusting to that schedule, he kind of helped me adjust to that in a way, and he, is really good about still letting me take Friday nights off, and if I need a weekend where I need to be off, he's good about that as well. And it was an adjustment, but I think my biggest adjustment within the whole TV industry was just having to, work in this business as a whole. Yeah. That was the big adjustment for me.
Wow. Well, why don't you, do you want to
talk
about that a
little
little
like
bit?
I said, it's always something new every single day. You don't know what's going to happen. And I have always, literally my entire life, I have always been a planner.
Okay.
And my mom always says, we make plans and God laughs. And that is true. I have discovered that so many times. But I'm
the
still,
same way.
I'm still going to have my planner out, you know, I'm writing down all my doctor's appointments 6 months in advance. Like, I'm getting things done. And making Fitz's vet's appointments, like, I'm always having those appointments. And I that was probably my biggest thing, was walking in every day and not knowing what to expect. Not even just weather-wise. Like I said, you know, we had that attempted assassination.
Yeah.
Obviously, no one knows that that's going to happen.
Right.
And we have stuff like that happen all the time throughout the city. And that was the biggest adjustment for me, is having to learn to go with the flow. And you don't have to have a plan for everything, even though you like to, Emily. You don't have to.
I think that's just great advice in general, of trying to just go with the flow, because I know we're all like, I want to go with the flow, but it's so hard.
Yeah. That's not how my brain is wired.
I know, me neither.
And I'm like the type of person who I have like a paper calendar planner, but I also have Google Calendar on my
Google
phone.
Calendar.
Because like I don't want to make sure
My
I'm missing
lifesaver.
something. Oh, I know, for sure. So I'm like always putting stuff in it, and it drives Jordan nuts, because I'm always trying to figure out what our schedule's going to be like 6 months down the road, and he's like, listen, Emily.
Girl, that's me.
He's like, I don't know what I'm having for breakfast tomorrow, so I can't tell you.
Oh my Lord.
I'm like, Jordan, please.
Okay, so let's dive into our STEAM questions a little bit. Why don't you tell me about some non-traditional careers that people could have in meteorology, other than just broadcasting?
Exactly. When I keep hitting this desk.
Oh no, you're good.
So if anybody hears a bang, that's me hitting my shoe on the desk. So yeah, people always, if I say I'm a meteorologist, they always assume that, oh, well, she's on TV. You know? Because that's the first thing that people think of when they think about the weather, is the people that are on TV, but they never think about the people who are behind the scenes. And one of our biggest team player is the National Weather Service here in Huntsville, because they are the ones who actually issue any type of warning, any type of watch. Well, not the watches, but the warnings. Heat advisories was kind of where I was going with that, with the watches, but tornado watches and severe thunderstorm watches, those come from the Storm Prediction Center. They're the big guns in Norman, Oklahoma. So they're kind of like the National Weather Service's boss, is how I would describe it. It's a big organization. It's all within NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration.
Whoa.
Mouthful, yes. So NOAA, they have the National Weather Service, they have National Hurricane Center, they have Weather Prediction Center, they have the Storm Prediction Center, and then I would say below, if we had to put them all together in like a hierarchy, they would be the top dogs, and then you would have the National Weather Service, and then you would have people like us.
Yeah.
People like us as in broadcast meteorologists, because we don't issue the tornado warnings, we don't issue the severe thunderstorm warnings. That all comes from the National Weather Service, and that's what our job is to relay that information from them to get it out to the public, because we're the communicators. So you have all the behind the scenes people. I know there's you can be a producer, a weather producer for places like Fox, more national. Good Morning America. I know Ginger Z, she has a wonderful team of weather producers. They get to build all of her graphics, forecasts with her and everything. You can work for private sectors like oil companies. Believe it or not, I didn't know oil companies relied on weather.
I didn't know that either.
I'm still trying to figure out what for, but I can work for private sectors. I could work for airlines.
See, that's what I thought.
Delta.
So that's crazy, but it makes sense though. Yeah.
So I feel like the sky's unlimited when it comes to professional meteorology route. Now there of course are some careers, I couldn't like pinpoint one, but they would, prefer you to have a master's. I feel like if I wanted to teach or something, I could teach meteorology. Literally all my professors, they have doctorates, and they came from Oklahoma.
Wow.
Oklahoma University is like the top dog for weather.
Really?
Where Mississippi State is like broadcast. But it's still like a very, very good, it's still a very good meteorology school, but like Norman, Oklahoma, that's where all my professors came from. So like I feel like in a sense I'm learning what they also learned in Oklahoma. So but yeah, there's the limits are endless in the route that I went, in a sense. And that was a lot of my family's concern, especially my nana. She was, you're gonna have to move to Cheyenne, Wyoming to get a job, and you're never gonna be able to be on TV here because it's just so hard, and nobody's gonna want to leave, and there's only so many TV stations you can work for. And I finally just said, Nana, it's gonna work out the way that it is gonna work out.
Right.
Thankfully, it worked out the way that I did want it to work out.
Yeah.
But, I feel like the job opportunities are unlimited with the route that I decided to go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, speaking of which, I know that you said that basically what you do is you communicate that information from the National Weather Service and whatnot. So I guess communication is kind of like an art in a way. So how do you think that element of the arts in STEAM, because I know that obviously meteorology is in the STEM field, but how do you think you bring that sort of art aspect to it, since this is a STEAM podcast?
Well, so for me personally, I feel like my art would come in a sense of building my graphics, because that's kind of graphic design in a way.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, communication is also related to an art field as well. So I feel like that would probably be the biggest art aspects of meteorology. And then, of course, you have people who have to draw the maps that you see online and all sorts of things like that. So that is another aspect where art kind of plays into meteorology too. I feel like it all of them tie together in some sorts. It's like I was telling you earlier, I literally could take 6 to 7 more college classes and I would have an engineering degree.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's insane, kind of, because you do have the science and the technology and all this, how everything kind of plays a part together. I feel like that's how they established them, in a sense.
Right.
But I'm glad arts is now being included, because that is a big aspect of things. Like, people don't think about graphic design, and I definitely couldn't draw my weather maps that I needed to show on TV. Like,
no, me neither.
I can build a graphic, but no, there's no way in heck I could do that.
Right.
So, art is a big aspect of meteorology too.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Okay, so kind of diving off of what you were saying about the weather maps and stuff, I'm kind of wondering, like, how was it kind of getting used to the weather map? Because I know that, like, I went to, I think it was like Creative Discovery Museum or some sort of science museum for kids, and they had like the little green screen that you could try it out, and I was like, what is going on?
It took me a little bit to get used to it, but I don't want to say I have really good hand-eye coordination. I don't want to brag on myself. But I was in the band when I was in high school, so I did have that ability for the hand-eye coordination, and it took me a little bit to get used to, because everything's reversed. What I see is reversed to what is on television.
Oh my gosh.
And then, of course, like you said, I have literally nothing but a neon green wall behind me. And then I have 2 side monitors that are beside me as well. So, like, if I'm giving a weather presentation, say if you're, like, the main camera, I look over to this side and I have a monitor on this side. I look over to this side and I have a monitor on this side of me as well. And that mimics what is on television, so I know where to point and things like that. So it took me a little bit to figure out, like, oh, well, my hand needs to go here to show this and this. And if I'm looking straight, we also have a monitor built in, so it's directly under the camera, kind of like how a teleprompter works.
Okay.
But it shows our weather graphics, so that's kind of how I can maneuver where I'm pointing and what direction I need to go, and if I need to step to this side or this side. And it was a lot.
Yeah, in a way, my little dancer brain kind of thinks of that as a way of like choreography or a performance per se, because of the having to learn, in a sense, the choreography of it, of having to, make micro adjustments, like the previous episode of Girls Guide to STEAM, where Hallie Sherman was saying that they constantly make micro adjustments in their performances and whatnot. It's kind of like a performance in a way. So that's kind of a art in a way too.
I never looked at it like that. That's a good point.
Yeah. It's kind of a performance.
No, seriously, like truly it is. Okay, that's another way that I can tie that into arts as well. I can't wait for someone to ask me this question next.
Oh, good.
I can tell them, well, actually, I'm doing choreography.
Exactly.
No, that's a good way to put that. I've never thought about it like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I kind of
Yeah.
added that to your
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you think, because innovation is something, I mean, we're here in the Invention to Innovation Center.
Yeah.
How do you think that meteorology and stuff can be more innovative in the future?
I feel like I just mentioned, AI is playing a big part in everything.
Okay.
Not with us necessarily, but it is becoming more popular.
Okay.
Good
or bad?
I would say for the good, because the way that I kind of differentiate things is, you know, if we ever got to a point, God forbid, where robots like took over the world or something, you know, and like they were like, well, we're just gonna have the robots do the TV. Like, you're not gonna trust a robot. You want a person, a real live person, to talk to you, to establish that connection with you. So I feel like the way technology is advancing, though, in my specific field, you know, it's getting us that better lead time. It all has to stem with radar and everything. It's getting us that better lead time on storm timing and how much, you know, more time you can add to them getting to a safe place. Or our graphics system is always changing. You know, our satellites are always differentiating because we use GOES. GOES they have a good amount of satellites.
Okay.
So a lot of that, you know, comes back into our computer system, and everything is advancing. So I feel like that's the good that technology comes with it. But like I said, I'm scared that we might get to a point where, not necessarily robots, but we will have that ability where they don't necessarily need someone to come into work to do the weather forecast. And like, I'm not going to trust, you know, a bot or something. I want a person to tell me, you know, it's about to rain at your house or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and everything's advancing more digitally too as well. I know I had mentioned this earlier. We did a digital only newscast. So we have our streaming platform, 54 Plus. It's on Apple, Roku. I think it's on everything pretty much now. But we have different things for digital. So like, we're still trying to figure out how we can differentiate digital from television. You know, well, I can just pull up my weather app and, you know, I don't need to watch the news. And we're still trying to figure out how we can still separate the two. So that's still kind of like a work in progress. But yeah, don't ever trust your weather app. I'll say that.
Oh, I see.
Trust your human.
I see. I was actually going to ask you up next about how technology is kind of used in meteorology. I mean, obviously there's a lot of technology, but I was also wondering, because you mentioned a little bit earlier in our conversation, or prior to recording, we talked a little bit about how you got started like right before the COVID-19 pandemic. So how is that like? Did you use a lot of virtual technology to do meteorology then?
Literally, my newscast came from this phone.
Wow.
I had a phone set up like this, and they had my graphic system. They had things specifically built for me.
Okay.
So the way that it would work is they would, it's now called TVU.
Okay.
So I would literally have it right here. I had like my ring lights and all my lights around me.
Okay.
And my director would pop me up first, and I would say like, let's take our graphics, and it would be my graphics, but then it would be like double box to where like I was still kind of in the corner, so they were still kind of getting to see me a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I had to basically figure out how to put a studio in my home essentially, because like I said, I you know, I worked from home, and our entire newscast at one point was from home. We had our anchor read the news at home, and then it would be me doing the weather at home, and then our sports department would be doing the sports at home too. And there's a little bit of a lag with live TV and the way that I was connected. It's about a 5-second lag. So there would be points where I would literally just be like sitting there, and then they would have to tell me like in my ear, you could go, you know, because it's just a little bit of a lag.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I never in a million years would have thought that I would have ever had the opportunity to do a newscast from my home. So that was interesting.
That's a very interesting or just cool way of using technology for
and
that.
I was the first person to leave, and I was the last person to come back because they kind of prioritized like our weekday versus our weekend crew.
Okay.
And so I came back the last. So I was gone from March of 2020 until April of 2021.
Wow.
Working from home. But it kind of had like its advantages too, because like I felt like I still got to stay at home during weekends, and I took a trip with one of my friends lives in Pensacola. I got to take a trip down there, and I actually got to do the weather from her house.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
So like I didn't have to take off work technically, but yeah, it was. I never in a million years would have ever thought I would ever be able to do a newscast from home, and I miss it in some ways, like getting to be at home, and I miss getting to wear my pajama bottoms on the bottom because nobody saw me. So I literally would just have like on a nice top and do my hair and makeup, but I literally would have on pajama bottoms and my slippers,
Yep, that's how I was for all my school Zoom meetings.
Yeah, and then my dog Fitz, he was still kind of a puppy at the time, and so he always thought that it would be a good idea to get the Zoomies right at 9 o'clock.
No!
So all you could see was him in the background running around, or you could hear him squeaking his ball, or his collar would be jingling, or like sometimes like I sat in a chair, so like he would sometimes jump up in my lap while I would be doing the weather.
Oh my goodness.
But people loved that too, because I feel like that aspect of it made it more personable as well. And like,
I mean, I know I would love seeing a cute little dog on there too.
And to this day, I still have people ask me how he is, but they don't care about me. They want to know how my dog fits.
No! So why don't we move into the advice questions? Okay. Oh my goodness. There's no pressure though. There's no pressure. So what advice do you have for young women who might be interested in a career in meteorology, specifically broadcast? I know. We've already mentioned a few little tidbits.
I'm trying to think. Like I said earlier, my number one piece of advice I would give someone, especially a female coming into this male-dominated field, was to stand up for yourself. Mm-hmm. You have the same education as the person sitting beside you. They may have the chief title as a male, but they're no better than you are. Mm-hmm. They may have more years of experience than you, but you'll eventually get to that position. But as for your schooling and the way you relay things to people, it's equal. You're all an equal part, and even if you are male or female. So I think finding your voice and then figuring out how to stand up for yourself and figuring out a way to let them know, like, hey, I'm your coworker. I'm a colleague. I'm not just here to have some fun. That would probably be my biggest piece of advice to give someone that's going into this field, especially female. And then, of course, you got to have thick skin. Don't let the little things get to you. Like I said, I'll have people who will send me hate mail, but I also have those good people who will tell me what good of a job I'm doing, or they loved the dress I was wearing the night before. Like, you have the good and the bad, and the good always will outweigh the bad. And don't just, it's so cliche, but literally don't ever give up on yourself, because this career field is extreme. And like I said, there were many times in college where I was just like, I'm like, my tank is on E, like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Yeah. And I still feel that way sometimes, even to this day. Like, I'll go a week straight having to fill in for Jordan and then have to work that weekend, so it'll be like a 12-day streak or something, and I'm like, oh my God, maybe I do want to get out and work a regular 9 to 5, somewhere else. So definitely always never give up on yourself ever. I know, as cliche as that sounds, it is so true, especially with this field. You're no better than anybody else. You can't. You gotta stay level-headed in a little bit of this. Everybody is kind of on the same journey as you are, and somebody may need help with something, and you always need to be willing to give them help, but also in a sense you also need to be willing to learn still. Right. I'm still learning to this day things that I could do better, or if we do change a graphic system or something, I'm gotta have training on it, just because I've been in this business for I've been on TV almost, let's see, 19, 20, almost 6 years. No, I've been on TV 6 years. I've been at Fox 54 almost 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm always learning, even though sometimes I do feel like I'm at full capacity of things that I know. You know, I'm always learning and always willing to learn. And I'm always willing to learn things outside of my field too. Like if they ever needed me on the anchor desk, then I would be, you know, more than willing to read the news if I needed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, as cliche as it sounds, literally just never give up on yourself, because I struggled with that a lot, was finding myself, you know, second guessing everything. And it was just, I wouldn't say it was a hard time by any means, but, you know, I just always kind of had that thought in the back of my mind, like, am I really cut out for this, you know? But there's always light at the end of the tunnel, as cliche as that sounds too, there is.
No, I love that. That's all great advice that anybody in any sort of field can take into account.
Yeah.
Okay, and we've already talked a little bit about the advice for broadcast meteorology specifically, but what about any careers in STEAM that young women are interested in? How do they navigate those male-dominated fields?
I feel like it's the same for everything. It's the same as what I would tell a female wanting to go in broadcast meteorology. You know, you've got to stand up for yourself and make people realize that you are an equal to them. You're not any more and you're not any less. So I feel like just standing up for yourself, always having a voice, a reason, that I feel like that could really just translate anywhere, but for this specific for STEAM, like you said, it is male dominated. So we're always trying to find ways how we can bring more females into the STEAM program, and how we could kind of make this a 50-50 way in a sense. So yeah, and you don't ever have to prove yourself to anyone, because you know what you can do and you know you can do it. So don't ever feel like you have to prove yourself to someone. If they're second guessing you, let them, because you know what you know what you can do and you know what you're worth. And yeah, I would probably just say, like, don't let the males get to you. Females are strong.
And speaking of which, I guess, why is it important? I mean, we understand the importance of it, but I guess, why is it important in general for there to be more women in male-dominated fields fields that are currently more male-dominated? What's the importance of that?
I would say it would probably be for people like me, who was younger, who did see the males more dominated in this field, and thinking, oh, well, I would never stand a chance, you know, because it is male-dominated. And I would see the occasional females and everything. But yeah, I would say probably that. But yeah, I would probably say that. And don't, it is, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be overbearing, overpowering, overwhelming to think, well, I'm about to go into a male-dominated field. Like, this is going to be something. You know, I wouldn't ever let that thought get to me either, as cliche as that also sounds. You know, everybody's equal, male or female, it doesn't matter. You have the same capabilities of doing the job just as good as a male can.
I love that. Well, let's see. What advice do you have for young women who are currently either in high school or college, who are interested in, like you said, starting that career?
Always be willing to learn. I struggled with that a little bit, because I will admit, I thought that I was a know-it-all.
No, we all have those moments.
I thought that I was a know-it-all, and I was like, man, I don't need anybody telling me how to do this or showing me how to do this, and you know, it'll bite you in the butt. I don't have a specific story, but I've seen it happen to people, and that kind of had to reroute my way of thinking about things. Yeah, I would just say, you know, always be willing to learn. Never be scared to ask questions. That was also a big thing. Me being an introvert, I didn't ever want to feel like I was a burden by having to stop somebody and say, well, can you explain that a little better to me? Or just, you know, even just a simple question. You know, no question is too dumb in a way. All questions are good questions. And I feel like, you know, the whole learning aspect of it, of never thinking, well, you're going to be at full capacity, I don't need to learn anymore, you know. And then of course ask the questions, you know. Anybody can always give good advice. Like I said, if anybody asks me about this field, I am going to be brutally honest with you that it is hard. But yeah, and not to let that get in your head either about it being male dominated and want to talk you out of that. If you love weather and it's your passion, then go for it, you know. Even if you want to fly a plane, you know.
Yeah.
If you want to be a woman being a cop, do it, you know. If that's your passion, go for it. It doesn't matter what gender you are, doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter where you went to school, just as long as you have the qualifications for it, then I think that that's all that matters and that's what's important.
Well, I love that. I think that's all the questions that I have for today. So I guess if anyone is interested in watching Emily Explains or learning more about Fox 54, how can they do that?
So obviously you can go to fox54.com. We have a YouTube channel as well. We have the streaming network. It's literally just called Fox 54 Plus.
Okay.
It's on Apple, it's on Android, it's on Roku. And then of course my inbox is always open. You can always email me at eowen@fox54.com. I'm always going to answer questions, especially if you know you are in school and you're wanting to become in this field. Then I'm always, that's like my favorite thing, is to talk about my career with people and my journey. So yeah, and then of course I'm on weekends, so you can watch me Saturday and Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. And then of course when Jordan's out, I'll fill in for him, so weekdays from 5:30 to 6, and then from 9 to 10 there as well.
Okay, well, perfect. Well, thank you, Emily, for joining this episode of A Girl's Guide to STEAM. It's been so much fun talking to you. And thank you for watching this episode of A Girl's Guide to STEAM. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.